To understand how semen retention protects you, we must first dive deep into the nature of lust and bad thoughts. Lust is not just a physical craving, it's an energetic imbalance rooted in desire without awareness. When unexamined, it manifests as impulsive thoughts, obsessive cravings, and unconscious habits that feed mental toxicity. It often arises when the mind lacks discipline and the body lacks energetic harmony. In many spiritual traditions, lust is considered one of the primary distractions from true awareness. From a spiritual perspective, lust is a misdirection of sacred life force energy. The same energy that can create life is misused in feeding shallow pleasures. This creates a cycle where temporary satisfaction is followed by deeper inner emptiness. The more we indulge, the more scattered our inner world becomes. Over time, this addiction to fleeting pleasure builds layers of negative thoughts, guilt, shame, regret, and anxiety. The mind becomes a battlefield where higher desires fight lower urges. Semen retention begins by interrupting this cycle. When a man decides to retain, he consciously chooses to redirect his most potent energy. Rather than spending it in physical pleasure, he begins to transmute it into creativity, purpose, discipline, and growth. This act in itself is a declaration of spiritual seriousness. It's not merely abstaining, it's alchemizing. The same energy that was once used for lust is now rising through the system, bringing clarity to the mind and calm to the heart. Bad thoughts often thrive when the mind is overstimulated and the nervous system is depleted. Regular ejaculation drains not only the body, but also mental focus and spiritual sensitivity. Ancient yogis and sages observed that a man who protects his seed preserves his prana, his life force, which keeps the mind sharp and emotions balanced. Semen retention starts acting like a shield. It calms the inner noise, reduces cravings, and builds a stronger sense of inner control. Therefore, the foundation of semen retention is awareness. The journey starts by confronting the root cause of lust, not suppressing it, but transforming it. As you retain, you become more aware of the impulses that once controlled you. You begin to observe them rather than react to them. This space between stimulus and response is where your power lies, and that power grows stronger every day you choose to retain. The alchemy of energy, from lower desires to higher consciousness. One of the most overlooked aspects of semen retention is energetic transmutation. In ancient teachings like Tantra and Taoism, semen is not just a physical fluid, it's a condensed form of spiritual energy. When a man stops wasting this energy, it starts to rise up the spine, awakening higher centers of awareness, such as the heart and the mind. Lust then no longer controls you because your consciousness rises above it. When this energy is retained, it doesn't stagnate. It evolves. It fuels inner fire, activates willpower, and illuminates intuition. You start feeling more present, more connected, more inspired. The very same thoughts that once pulled you down, fantasies, cravings, urges, begin to dissolve as your energy shifts. This isn't repression, it's redirection. You are no longer a victim of your biology, but the master of your inner world. As your energy rises, your emotional landscape changes. The pull of lust weakens. You feel less reactive and more centered. A sense of inner peace replaces restlessness. This happens because the body's no longer running on low reserves. You're filled with the same power that once drained you. And with this power comes responsibility, to channel it wisely, creatively, and consciously. Your mental clarity improves because your vital energy is no longer leaking. The thoughts that used to haunt you, shameful memories, obsessive fantasies, irrational desires, begin to lose their grip. The brain starts working at a higher frequency, and with that comes discipline and insight. You become more selective with what you consume, how you spend your time, and who you allow in your energy field. Ultimately, this alchemical process makes you more sensitive, not in a weak way, but in a spiritual way. You start to feel what is pure and what is toxic. You recognize the subtle difference between love and lust, between desire and distraction. You gain a higher intuition that protects you from energy-draining people, seductive illusions, and the lies that once manipulated your mind. This is the silent gift of semen retention. Spiritual discernment, rewriting the subconscious mind and reprogramming the nervous system. Semen retention doesn't just affect your conscious habits. It deeply reprograms your subconscious mind. The subconscious is where old patterns live. Every time you gave into lust, you reinforced a neural circuit that became stronger over time. These circuits operate below awareness, so even when you don't want to fall, the pull can feel too strong. That's because you're fighting deep conditioning, not just surface thoughts. When you practice retention, you're disrupting that pattern. You're introducing a new signal to your brain. This urge doesn't control me anymore. With repetition, this new pathway becomes the dominant one. The old associations, porn, lustful scrolling, fantasy, begin to dissolve. Your subconscious slowly adapts to a new standard of living. You stop feeding the mental demons that kept you small. You start believing that self-control is your default state, but to rewire the mind, you must also regulate the nervous system. Lust is not just a mental habit, it's a physical state of overstimulation. Our modern world is full of dopamine spikes, social media, erotic content, shallow pleasures. This keeps the nervous system in a state of hyper-arousal, making calmness and clarity almost impossible. Semen retention helps rebalance this. It tones the nervous system like a muscle, building resilience, stillness, and strength. As your body calms down, your thoughts become more refined. You start experiencing stillness, not as boredom, but as beauty. You enjoy simplicity, nature, silence, breath, presence. These were always available to you, but lust had clouded your vision. Retention clears that fog. It sharpens your inner vision. What once seemed impossible, sitting still, thinking clearly, loving purely, becomes your new reality. The real transformation happens when your subconscious starts working for you, not against you. When your body and mind align, when your nervous system and energy field are stable, lust has no place to land. Bad thoughts become like passing clouds. You see them, but you don't identify with them. You've outgrown them. Not because you forced yourself to, but because you evolved beyond their vibration. The spiritual guard, how retention shields your aura and attracts light. Your aura is the energetic field that surrounds your body. When you retain, this field becomes stronger, brighter, more magnetic. People feel it even before you speak. You carry presence. You carry light. And this light naturally repels darkness, not only in people, but in thoughts. Bad thoughts are a lower frequency, and they cannot survive in a high-frequency environment. That's why many practitioners of semen retention report spontaneous healing, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Semen retention acts like a spiritual shield. The more you protect your energy, the more sensitive you become to what doesn't serve your soul. You start walking away from things that once tempted you. You stop feeding relationships that were built on lust or ego. You say no more often, not from fear, but from clarity. You realize your energy is sacred, and you refuse to waste it. This spiritual clarity also increases your intuition. You begin to sense when lust is trying to creep in, not just in the obvious ways, but in subtle thoughts, distractions, or emotional voids. You catch it early. You breathe through it. You return to your higher self. This is mastery, not perfection, but presence. You no longer fall for the trap because you see it before it unfolds. People around you will notice. Women will respect your presence. Men will admire your discipline. But the real gift is within. You'll start enjoying your own company. You'll feel content in your solitude. That inner light, once dimmed by lust, now glows in your heart, your mind, and your speech. You become a beacon of purity in a world addicted to impurity. Ultimately, semen retention is spiritual protection. It doesn't mean you'll never be tempted again, but it means you'll never be weak again. You'll have the strength to rise above, the clarity to see through illusions, and the power to stay connected to your soul. And that is far more attractive than any fantasy the world could offer. Living as a spiritual warrior. The purpose beyond retention. Semen retention is not the end goal. It's the beginning of true spiritual living, Once lust and bad thoughts no longer control you, space opens for purpose, vision, and service. You begin to ask deeper questions. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? How can I serve others with the power I've cultivated? These questions mark the next stage of the journey. From personal mastery to spiritual leadership, a retained man becomes a channel of strength, of wisdom, of healing. You become grounded yet inspired, disciplined yet compassionate. This duality makes you powerful. You don't just speak about self-control, you radiate it. You don't just talk about spirituality, you live it. This embodiment influences others more than words ever could. You become a living example of what's possible. The temptations will always exist. The world will continue promoting lust, instant gratification, and superficial living. But you're no longer reactive. You see through the illusion. You walk in a different frequency. People may not understand it, but they'll feel it. Your silence will speak. Your eyes will tell a story. Your energy will leave an imprint on every room you enter. In this new life, challenges become opportunities. Triggers become teachers. Even lust, when it arises, becomes a reminder to rise higher. You don't run from your shadow, you integrate it. You don't fear your desires, you refine them. This is the path of the spiritual warrior, not to avoid the world, but to walk through it with grace, power, and light. And in the end, you realize it was never about semen retention alone. It was about becoming the man your soul came here to be. A man of clarity, a man of energy, a man of vision, a man who doesn't chase illusions, but lives in truth. Dopamine discipline, reclaiming the mind from chemical hijacking. Modern lust is deeply linked with dopamine dysregulation. Every sexual stimulus, whether visual, auditory, or imagined, gives a quick dopamine spike. Over time, this rewires the brain to chase high-intensity stimulation and avoid the peace of the present moment. When men indulge frequently, their brain builds tolerance, and soon even extreme content or fantasies can't satisfy. This becomes a trap. You chase more, but feel less. Semen retention breaks this addictive loop. When you retain, dopamine levels begin to stabilize. The constant chemical spikes from lustful content or ejaculation are removed, and your baseline mood begins to rise. You start enjoying smaller, more natural pleasures again. Fresh air, music, meaningful conversations. Your reward system recalibrates to real life instead of hyperstimulation. And this shift is powerful. It makes you mentally free. This mental freedom gives you back your time, focus, and clarity. You stop living in fantasy and start acting in reality. You spend fewer hours lost in cravings and more hours building a purposeful life. Whether it's reading, learning a skill, or working on a dream, your productivity increases. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're no longer wasting your energy on mental noise. Also, you begin to detach from lustful triggers. Where once a suggestive image or memory would hijack your focus, now you can observe it without reacting. This isn't suppression, it's reprogramming. You train your brain to stay calm, grounded, and clear. You build a new response, awareness without addiction. That alone makes you a rare force in a distracted world. In this state, your mind becomes your ally. Thoughts no longer sabotage your growth. Temptations may still arise, but they pass like clouds. You no longer chase them. Your brain is no longer hijacked by artificial highs. It becomes optimized for depth, creativity, vision, and truth. That is the silent yet revolutionary benefit of semen retention on mental health. Celibacy versus semen retention. The inner game of sacred intimacy. There's a common confusion between celibacy and semen retention. Celibacy is abstinence from all sexual activity, usually for religious or monastic reasons. But semen retention is deeper. It's about mastering sexual energy, not rejecting it. It doesn't mean you fear intimacy. It means you honor it. You become selective with your energy and who you share it with. This shift radically transforms how you view relationships and attraction. On semen retention, lust loses its grip because you stop chasing flesh and start seeking connection. You no longer look at people as objects of desire. Instead, you feel their energy, You listen to their soul. You become conscious of the energetic exchange in intimacy. It's no longer about release. It's about resonance, and that shift dissolves shallow fantasies. This makes your spiritual path stronger. You are no longer distracted by false connections or temporary highs. You're grounded in your own wholeness. You're not needy. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You radiate completeness, and that's why the right people start to come into your life. Lust-based relationships fade away. Soul-based relationships rise up. Moreover, semen retention makes your interactions pure. Women can sense your intention, whether it's lust or presence. When you're grounded in retention, you carry stillness. You're not craving attention. You're not playing games. You simply show up with integrity. That kind of presence is rare, and that rarity creates natural respect, even reverence. So in this way, semen retention becomes a gateway to sacred intimacy. Intimacy not just with others, but with your own soul. You're no longer trying to escape through pleasure. You're anchored in truth. You're not afraid of desire. You've transformed it. That's the difference between suppression and mastery. And that's the hidden power of the retained man. Protecting your spiritual vision. Retention as a weapon against temptation. Temptation is everywhere in today's world. It's in your pocket, on your screen, in conversations, advertisements, and music. The modern environment thrives on triggering base desires. And if your spiritual vision is not protected, you get pulled into the lower realm without even noticing. Semen retention helps you defend this vision by strengthening your inner gatekeeper, your willpower and awareness. Every time you retain during a moment of temptation, you sharpen that gatekeeper. You remind yourself, this urge is not stronger than me. And in that pause, you reconnect with your higher purpose. Lust tries to pull your eyes away from your path. But when you retain, you start to see temptation for what it really is. A distraction dressed as pleasure. And when you see it clearly, its power weakens. Your spiritual goals become clearer. Whether it's awakening the higher self, meditating deeply, connecting to the universe, or serving others, all of it requires energy. Leaking energy to lust is like pouring sacred water into the desert. But when you contain and refine it, your spiritual vision becomes sharper. You start having more vivid insights, dreams, and intuitive downloads. You feel guided, protected, and aligned. Temptation is a test, and semen retention prepares you to pass that test with clarity and power. Each victory over lust becomes fuel for your journey. It's not just about avoiding sin, it's about protecting your destiny. You don't retain to look holy, you retain to stay focused. You don't run from pleasure, you rise above addiction. That's what sets a spiritual warrior apart. In time, the very temptations that once distracted you become powerless. You look back and realize they were never stronger than you. You just hadn't claimed your power yet. Now through retention, you've taken it back, and nothing can take it from you again. The silent power, developing an aura of non-reactivity. A retained man begins to develop a powerful trait, non-reactivity. This is not indifference, it's emotional mastery. When lust no longer pulls you into urges, fantasies, or emotional chaos, you become calm by nature. Your face shows serenity. Your eyes carry depth. You don't need to prove anything, chase validation, or argue to feel strong. Your energy speaks for itself. This non-reactivity confuses the modern world. People are used to overstimulation. When you don't react to seduction, provocation, or manipulation, people don't know what to do. You become unshakable. And this makes you incredibly attractive, not just to women, but to opportunities. Because leaders, clients, and seekers are drawn to energy that is centered and trustworthy. This inner stillness also protects your mental state. Thoughts come, but you don't entertain them unless they align with your truth. You no longer identify with every image that flashes through your mind. You start curating your inner world like a sacred temple. Lustful, anxious, or negative thoughts become background noise, easily dismissed. And over time, this calm becomes contagious. People feel peace around you. Your presence alone can de-escalate tension, calm a room, or guide someone from chaos to clarity. That's the true leadership energy that semen retention cultivates. You don't command respect, you embody it. You don't fight for control, you radiate it. Non-reactivity is not passivity, it's choosing your response. It's staying grounded in any situation. It's being free from compulsion. And that's the power that grows in silence when you protect your seed. You're no longer a slave to lust, you're the king of your inner kingdom. The path forward, making semen retention a lifestyle, not a phase. For many men, semen retention starts as a challenge. 7 days, 30 days, 90 days. But true transformation begins when you stop counting days and start living the principles. It's not about reaching a goal, but about embodying a new identity. Semen retention becomes a lifestyle, a way of honoring your energy, not as a rule, but as a ritual. This lifestyle touches every area of your existence. You begin to align your sleep, food, media, conversations, and choices with your higher path. You become more conscious of your environment, who you follow, what you read, where you spend your time. You design your life around clarity, not chaos. And this builds an unshakable foundation. But living this way takes discipline. You will still have temptations. There will be moments when the old you wants to rise up, to scroll, to fantasize, to escape. But now you're equipped. You don't fight these urges from weakness. You face them with strength. You remind yourself of your journey, your progress, your purpose, and that reminder gives you power. Eventually, semen retention is no longer something you do. It's who you are. You've become the man who doesn't need to escape, who doesn't need constant pleasure, who doesn't bow to urges. You're rooted in something higher. And in that rooting, you rise. Your life starts reflecting this new frequency. Better relationships, deeper wisdom, stronger health, and spiritual growth. And if you ever fall, you know how to rise again. Because this path is not about being perfect. It's about returning to your truth again and again, stronger each time. That's the journey. That's the transformation. That's the destiny of the retained, awakened man.